Welcome to the 236th episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Welcome, and thank you for listening. I hope your holiday season is moving along good and healthy and active. This episode is going to be dedicated to my California International Marathon race report, and it's a good one, and I'm very happy about it. But first, let's lead up to what we usually do. Things that are going on in my garden. The outside garden is not much going on. The trees are all kind of just doing their thing. But the tower garden is starting to shine with Swiss chard and eggplant and peppers and parsley and tomatoes. So that's all good. Have some celery growing there as well. I joined a club called Misfits Market that delivers a box every week of organic vegetables that just aren't as pretty as what you would find in Whole Foods. And I got to tell you, it's been a great experience so far. I've had 2 boxes, and they come on time. The produce looks really good. It's really fresh. So that's a really good experience for me. I think I'm probably going to increase the delivery so that I can actually use it for the nutrition classes that we have in the office. I think that'll be a great thing. In the office this week, we also had, from the podcast, Milo Payne, who brought down his microgreens and gave a talk on how to grow microgreens. So that was really good. Shared that with Facebook Live to our members that couldn't attend, but we had a great attendance from the local members. So that was really good. People took home some microgreens. I am letting my microgreens kind of fizzle a little bit while I was gone traveling to California, but now that I'm back, I think I'll try to get some going so I have some ready for Christmas. It's a great way to grow indoor when things aren't doing so great outside. I learned a lot from Milo. I learned about, the controlled environment and temperature, things I really didn't think about. Such as the pH of your water. If you have, really highly chlorinated water, it might not be such a great thing. Distilled water is a little bit mineral deprived for plants, and things like watering from the bottom. So a lot of very interesting things on the microgreens. I think right now I have my trays kind of facing my porch so they get sun that way, but I might consider doing some LED lighting. And, this is Christmas time. If you do microgreens or you want to give that as a gift, a neat idea that we talked about was, because the LED Christmas lights are out and there are going to be some sales, you can get those little lights and make your own little string of lights for your microgreens. So that's a good DIY project for the holidays if you haven't thought about Christmas giving. And of course, we'd like you to give our cookbook for Christmas. Gonna go on over to Amazon, or you can actually go to our website and email us if you'd like us to send you a signed copy, but we would be happy to do that. But either way, Plant-Based Wellness Cooking, the doctor, the dietitian, and the diva. So give that to your friends and family. The recipes are easy to get on the table, quick to cook and tasty. I gave a talk yesterday to the hospital cardiac rehab people, and I let them look at the cookbook, and a lady opened up to the carrot dog page, and the guy immediately said, "Oh, I would never eat a carrot dog. You can't fool me on that." And the more I talked over the time, and it's like, eating a carrot dog, we're really looking at just the spices that's, associated with the hot dog, such as cumin and garlic and smoked paprika, a little maple syrup. And you're missing when you get rid of the hot dog part, you're missing the beef lips and the anus and the hoof parts and all the nitrite carcinogens that are associated with processed meat. So by the time I got done talking, I had them pretty much, they bought a cookbook, and I think they were going to try the carrot dog. So that was a lot of fun. I also would suggest for our Christmas gifts to get tickets for our conference, March 28th. So that's a one-day event down here in Port Charlotte at the Beach Complex, where we'll have Pam Popper and Karen Hartglass and Addie Meinerich and cooking demonstrations and whole food, plant-based, sugar, oil, salt-free breakfast and lunch, and lots of times for question and answer. So there you can head on over to our website to get those tickets or go directly to Eventbrite. But you can do that. And of course, we have an immersion program for someone wanting to take or maybe perhaps give themselves a great head start into the new year with a week immersion with us, where it'll be an exercise intensive, nutrition education intensive, hands-on intensive question and answer session with myself and Addie, the registered dietitian. So we're really looking forward to working with just a selected number of people for that conference, so that we can, be together all the time. You'll be in our test kitchen working with us, as well as, exercising right along with us. It doesn't matter where you are, it just matters your motivation. So we want people that really want to come and take themselves to a new level. We'll meet you where you are, regardless of your nutrition status or your exercise status, but plan on making great leaps forward. So if you know somebody that's really interested in turning things around and wants to really get a jump on things, and not only just for an immersion week, but to continue that path with us into the future, or really have a good foundation of what to do. So it's not just a week of health and then you go back to your old ways. This is really getting you started for a new lifestyle. So if you're into that, again, look on the website to be able to sign up for that, and you can always call our office or email us with further questions. So back to the California trip. A lot of times people travel and they say, "Oh, I traveled, I couldn't find anything." Well, we have an onion allergy. Michael cannot tolerate onions, and especially, he wants to stay or avoid anything with onion powder or onions or scallions before a race. The last thing you need is a bad belly before going into a marathon. So we have found that Thai food is really safe, and we can usually talk to them and have them make food for us that is without a significant amount of oil, without a significant amount of fat. I like it very hot. He likes it without onions, so that usually works out good. We also went to a Greek restaurant a couple of times and was able to get some falafel and salads, obviously minus the yogurt and feta cheese that are usually associated with those. There is a great place in California that we like to visit. It's actually a Himalayan restaurant, and those are really, really good. The interesting thing, we've been going to the same place. After the California International Marathon, we usually head up to Napa for a day, and there is a place called Gott's Diner, and I've been going there for many, many years, or going to that area for many, many years. And when I first went to Gott's Diner as a vegan, I was with people that weren't vegan, and I ended up with a vegetable taco that was basically raw carrots and celery and a taco shell. And of course, you can imagine I got a lot of grief over, eating that, and I was still hungry after eating that. Well, this year we decided to see if Gott's menu had changed because it's a famous diner, and they had this wonderful falafel salad that plenty of vegetables, nice big salad, lots of greens, and it was great. So, over the years, everybody's sort of coming around and they're realizing that people actually want to be healthy. So you can find things when you kind of know what you want, and when you're comfortable making suggestions to your wait staff. Can I do this? Can I do that? Because if you just ask for something vegan or something plant-based, they're going to be confused because that's not how they eat. But if you can give them suggestions, it usually works. I brought the lemon poppy seed muffins for our airplane trip, and that went from the cookbook, and those those always taste good. And I also brought picky oats, which is a prepackaged oatmeal that actually has some beet powder in it. So I had that before the race. The disappointing thing about Sacramento this time was that the farmers market was closed secondary to high winds, so we didn't get our fruits there that we usually get. Some beautiful persimmons and pomegranates, and so they didn't have that opportunity this time. So that was a little disappointing, but nevertheless we made it. The race weekend starts with a 5K that goes around the Capitol building, downtown Sacramento, and we ran that. the weather forecast was to be, 80% rain, but right before the race started, the sun came out, and it was actually beautiful in the 60s, and it was a pretty crowded race. They also had a kids mile fun run after that, and so it was nice to see, a race looking to promote health and wellness for the whole family. They had some bounce houses for the little kids, and it was good. The 5K we did as a shakeout run, so we weren't trying to run a good time or anything. In the past, after being on an airplane, I've always kind of felt stiff, and something hurts, a little niggle there, and it always kind of makes me worry a little bit about what's going to happen with the marathon, because you kind of have a feeling about how things are going to go. But we decided to just run easy and shake it out and do a few pickups where we speed up to marathon pace, and actually felt really good. Didn't really look at my watch much. We were just kind of running to breath. As I've mentioned before, I can tell by the way I breathe pretty much what my pace is. Breathing through my nose, I can, achieve a certain pace, and then I have to open my mouth. And so I decided, I'm going to breathe, at my easy pace through my nose. And I actually looked down, and we were running, 9:30s really easy, and that made me feel really good and that's 9 minutes and 30 seconds a mile. Because in the past I wouldn't have felt that good on that shakeout run, and then we did a few pickups, so that was all good. It's always fun to watch the kids run with their parents. You can tell the kids that are active versus the kids that are more front of the TV, sit around type kids. It's nice to see all the kids there, no matter what the shape or size, though, because to me that tells me that the parents are trying, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, and it's very difficult today, as many of you know. If you try to eat the standard American diet with fast food and kid food, which is crazy, it's hard not to have a kid that's overweight, and it's hard not to have a young parent that's overweight. I think one of the worst things ever invented was kid food, and I think Pam Popper and I have talked about that on a previous podcast. When I was growing up, kids' food was what everybody else ate. Maybe you ate a smaller portion, or maybe it was cut up in smaller bites, but it was regular fruit, vegetables and what the adults ate. But with French fries and nuggets, and you think about 37 ingredients besides chicken in the chicken nugget, the breading, the sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and everything that's breaded. It's almost impossible for a kid not to be overweight that's not extremely active. So if you have a kid that likes to be inside and it's more artsy, more a bookworm, more computer oriented, it's hard for those kids not to be really overweight. So we saw, again, all shapes and sizes. One of the funniest thing that I heard during the kids' race was a mom saying, slow down, you can run faster with your dad, but wait for mommy. And, I kind of giggled over that. I was glad she was out running. I don't know where dad was, but, they were both trying together, and I think that's actually fabulous. But I like I said, I applaud all those people that had their kids out and that were trying to get back in shape, trying to keep their kids in shape. We hear in the office that the reason why people don't become plant-based or they struggle is that their kids won't eat that way. Or how do you transition your children? And people think of it as being a bad parent or a mean parent if you don't let your kids have the junk food and the fast food and the high sugary foods. But when you look at the races, like we were watching, and you see what happens to those kids that are eating that way and the families that are eating those fast foods, you're not doing your kids any favor. And just by changing the nutrition, people's it's going to be a lot easier. They're going to feel a lot better. And we know that kids do better in school that are, healthy body weights. they're gonna grow better. They're not going to be as inflamed and toxic. Their moods are going to be more stable. So, don't think that just because you have young children that they won't eat that way is a reason not to do this, or to give up on the struggle. Don't give up on the struggle. Continue to introduce things to the children, even if it's one vegetable a week, but stay away from the fast foods and the sugary things. And especially around the holidays, there are ways to make desserts that are more fruit forward, less oil and butter, less sugary things, and limit those, and make sure you have lots of other food, lots of other vegetables around, because it can really be a tough time of the year for kids as well. The other thing that was funny and different from this year's 5K is that I was checking out all the jogging strollers, because our own registered dietitian, Addie Meinerich, is expecting in May, and Addie being a runner, and I'm a runner, I think I'm going to have a Port Charlotte-based jogging stroller. So we were asking all the the people and checking out the jogging strollers. Does this go good? Does this fold up easy? Can you run good with this? Does it look lightweight? The consensus was, for all you people out there looking for potential jogging strollers, is that Bob's brand jogging strollers even beats out Thule, hands down, on survey that we did on the streets of Sacramento. So if you have any comments to that effect, I would certainly love to hear what jogging stroller that you use. You can email me at Jami@drdelaney.com, and certainly Addie at drdelaney.com with that information, because we'd love to hear what you think and how you're doing with the jogging stroller. I know 27 years ago, when Addie was in a stroller, you had one of those big bulky strollers that you couldn't do anything with except walk, and they were painful to put in the car, and you pinched your fingers. And then we had this little umbrella stroller that became the workhorse that you could take anywhere with you. So times have changed. I have to re-educate myself on the stroller scene. So, well, time for the marathon. I would like to start by thanking my coach, Wes Judd, for all his help. We've been working together for about 6 weeks. We started right after the Ironman Chattanooga, and he took me from a Ironman and built me back up from, you always have a rest period, so let my legs come back, and built me up gradually with a combination of running and cross training. And then he gradually added speed work and pickups and strides, and then some tempo pace runs to my training. And it was nice to have somebody do that. I have never had I'm going to put this in air quotes, real coach that gave me, as we're going, and feedback plan and feedback along the line. And it was just a very positive experience. I've had a couple people give me training plans over the past that I kind of would, they didn't really fit where I was, and I kind of, not look forward to having to do the specific workout over, and it seemed to be the same things over and over again, and wasn't sure exactly how I would accomplish them. I remembered I tried to do some of the speed work on a treadmill before, and it was just kind of half-hearted that I would go through things, and never really had much of a different result, and certainly never had any feedback. And I've kind of always, I've looked at having a coach as having another job, that I just really don't have time for somebody to give me, orders on how I should run, which is my relaxation. And, do I have time? And nobody knows my schedule. And, things get in the road, and then I'm going to disappoint them, and they're going to disappoint me. So I've just kind of avoided the coaching scene. I've used some plans in books, but really over the past several years, I've just kind of built up my mileage and got to the mileage I need to survive the marathon and run the marathon and hope for the best, and, maybe do some little pseudo pickups and speed work, but nothing really, really, certainly nothing structured. I've coached basketball and track as a parent coach, certainly not as an athlete. I was never a basketball player. I had an uncle that was a basketball player, and he was quite an accomplished basketball player. I read numerous books. I did get a level 1 USA track and field certification so that I would have some knowledge when I was helping coach high school track. But that's about as far as, I went coaching these athletes, and everybody that I've ever coached has had a significantly less amount of knowledge than I have had, little kids, 13-year-olds, whatever. And so I was never, pushed to the, top levels of coaching at all. But, as a coach and as a physician, and I would guess a nutrition coach in a lot of aspects, you can see whether people are coachable or not. And I didn't ever want to be one of those people that wasn't coachable. So when I decided to hire Wes as my coach, I was fully committed to doing whatever he said, when he said it, and not really giving him feedback as opposed to how I was feeling, but not trying to alter anything. He was I left him entirely 100% in control of my racing schedule and my plan and what I did. And I wanted to see how it went using his expertise. Certainly not going to blame him, but I wanted to see if I could handle it. But I did not want to. I certainly didn't want to. It wasn't up for debate of what he had me do. So whatever he said, I was ready to do, and it certainly has paid off. As a cardiologist, I pretty much know, and again, I've read a lot of books and done the level 1 coaching certification. So knowing the lactate thresholds and the VO2 max and what people typically do in training. I know it. I know the physiology behind it. Do I know how to give that someone to have a successful race? Well, obviously not, because I didn't follow it myself. So, I've just kind of done these past marathons. I think I'm well over 25 marathons to finish as good as I can, running as much as I can. But trying to avoid getting hurt. That was really my, thought process on all these. I love to run. It's my greatest stress reliever. So I don't want to get injured to the point where I can't run. And so I've always protected myself and probably overprotected myself as far as pushing to new limits in order not to get hurt. So I would, consider myself a fitness runner. And I've had 3 or 4 good marathons out of those 25, and you say, oh, that's terrible. But 26.2 miles, there's a lot of time to do something stupid, and I've been able to do something stupid on a lot of occasions. And, and most of the time, those marathons have been where I've kind of run a steady pace. It's when you look at a marathon, if you can negative split, so between the first 13, the second 13.1, if the last 13.1 gets faster, that's typically the best way to run a marathon. You kind of hold back and let it go at 20 miles because that's really when it starts. That's when the race is. But it's really hard psychologically to wait to do that because you always wonder, well, what happens if something happens and I don't have anything to pick up? So if I start out too slow, then I didn't give it my all. If I start, but the good marathons that I've run in the past have been pretty steady for the whole race. I may have negative split at 1, but those 4 or 5 races have been my best races. The one that was pretty steady. So so what's changed that made me want to try to do something different? Well, you read and you look, and plant-based, and you want to push it a little bit. And I guess I got a little chip on my shoulder. I got tired of being mid-packer. I wanted to see if I could push it a little bit. And, saw some people that were older, and there was a little bit of a joke, not so subtle, that, somebody was 70 years old and setting a record for a marathon, then why can't I? And, I want to push myself and see how far I can go. I was not an athlete, running athlete in high school. I was a golfer. So, maybe there's more potential than I've given myself credit for. The other thing was, this fear of you're getting older, you're going to get slower, things are going to get worse. And I'm not ready to give up that fight. And I think as we get older, we have to push a little bit further because you start to lose things maybe a little quicker if you don't pay attention. So, everything sort of came to the perfect storm for let's try to do something faster. So I hired Wes, and he started giving me a plan. And again, things were going well. No injuries, so that was all good. I didn't really have an idea of what I could do. I knew my personal best in the past, but I didn't know how much I could push it, how much realistically I could push it, because again, I continued to get older. And so there was a lot of unknowns, and Wes was very supportive, but not, not saying there was never any workouts to run this pace. It was running by feel, which I think is great. Running by feel, running for joy, running for happiness, all the things that I wanted to, everything positive about running. And that's what I like. Again, running is my passion. It's what calms me down. And I didn't want it to be a job, and he certainly didn't make it a job. I look forward to the sessions that he gave me. I was afraid of some of the sessions that, the longer sessions, would I be able to handle a pace in the back of my mind that I wanted to handle? But at no time did he say, try to do this pace or anything. So we really didn't know what kind of pace that I would be able to handle. I have had some bad marathons in the past where I go out too fast looking for a time, and only to fizzle and then to kind of slump in for the last 10 miles. And I didn't really want that. There's always the thing, is it between your ears or is it in your legs that causes the problem? Nutrition can be an issue, not enough nutrition, too much nutrition. We all suffer during a marathon. It never feels good at the end. I do remember one coach saying the last 5K never feels, it won't feel better going slower. So you just have to get it done. And that's usually what pulls me back from my, 18 to 20 mile slump, is like, well, you can slog this out and drag it out, but it's not going to feel any better going, longer than shorter. So you might as well, buck up and try to go as fast as you can. So I have that mentality at the end. So I have to pick yourself up and go at the end. It's that middle portion that that really scared me, that if I was going to just drop off and decide to enjoy the weather during the run, as opposed to keep pushing. So anyway, I would have to say that it's between my ears that it, is the biggest challenge for me. And I think that applies to everything. It applies to nutrition when you're trying to, change to a plant-based nutrition. It applies to everything in life. And I've said this before on on podcast that, marathon is marathon running and golfing is a lot like life. Bad things happen, and you've got to pick yourself up and go on. And, it's how long it takes you before you pick yourself up has a lot to do with how it really turns out. Some of those things that, come, why can't I? Became, if somebody is running faster, and I look at somebody that's older and, are running faster, well, why can't I? And you can apply that to, why can't I get to my ideal body weight? Why can't I be 100% plant-based? Why can't I run a fast race? Why can't I start a new sport? Why can't I, do those yoga poses? Why can't I? And I think we all have the between the ears that holds us back a tremendous amount. So, I'm going to encourage everybody to, take that on. And why can't I? You can't do it until you push it. So I kind of came to the understanding in my head before the race that I was going to race it, and we'll see what happens. And if it doesn't turn out the way I want, then we're going to keep training and it's going to keep getting better. But I desperately, wanted to, I guess get a personal best. I wanted to do better than my last best race. Was probably my A goal. So if I could accomplish that, then that would be a success. Certainly, if I could qualify for the Boston Marathon, that would be a success. And then my ultimate goal has been to break 4 hours. And that would be the icing on the cake if that were the end result. So that's kind of how I went into it. But before I can tell you just about the race, I think I need to tell you about the diva. And the diva is my mom, one of the authors of the cookbook. Well, the diva is a golfer. And so while I was having my race weekend, she was having a golf tournament weekend. And she is 86 years old, and she typically golfs 2 days a week, a Thursday and a Saturday game. And then she does a yoga day and she does a Zumba day. Well, she had an opportunity to play in a 3-day golf tournament, and she was very concerned and I guess we'll say she fretted over whether or not she could do 3 days in a row golfing, whether she could compete with much younger people in the golf tournament. And they also had a couple of banquets in the evenings, and whether she could actually do those and do the golf, and whether she would be okay to drive at dusk. Now, her eyes are good, and she's a decent driver, no worse than she's ever been. She doesn't listen to the podcast, so I can say that. But she struggled in her head, between her ears, whether she could do those. And we encouraged her that she could, because, she's actually very, very active. And it's like, you try and see how you go. And then you come home and you rest, and we'll see how things go. Well, I called her from California to see what happened on day one of her golf tournament. And not only did she win her team, but they got a bye because they won the first 9 so bad that they didn't have to play the second 9. So that was great. She was all happy. People were 30 years younger than her, and she beat them, and she's very competitive. And I don't know where I get it. But anyway, so she did great on day 1. Day 2, they had a little difficult, and she had, I think, 2 or 3 birdies the first day. So that's pretty good. She plays from the gold tees on an executive course, but nevertheless, she's 5'1" and 86 years old. So, don't take her on. Day 2, they held their own, didn't gain any ground, didn't lose, but, got into a little bit of trouble. And then day 3, they came back, and she told her partners, we have to buckle down, you have to get over the water, we have to sink this putt. They were very, very focused, and they ended up tied, and they had to go back out in sudden death playoff. And so they went out in sudden death playoff, and they buckled down, and they won. And so it was really, she was really, really excited, and she got through her banquets, and she enjoyed herself, and she didn't have any problems. And, but she struggled between her ears whether she could do it or not, and she did it, and it was a great, great feeling. So from here on out, what I say about my run really doesn't compare to, what she did as far as buckling down. Because if you've ever played golf, then you've noticed that, when things start to go awry, you can actually fall apart and give up. And but she didn't, and they really fought to come back. So back to the marathon. You get bussed out to Folsom, and then you run 26.2 miles back into Sacramento and finish in front of the Capitol building. So it's a beautiful race. The weather was 40s, high 40s, 50s. I think it was actually 50 at the start, and intermittent rain, but not too much, just a little bit of a drizzle. People complained about it being a little humid. Living in Florida, it was not humid. It was pleasant. I was dressed right, and so that was all good. Felt good. We went out to our tent. We went out and lined up. People were supposed to get in your corrals that you think you should, based on your finishing time. So I got in a corral, and I lined myself up with the 4-hour pace group. In the past, I have never done well with the pacing group, or ever finished with the pacing group for the most part. I think one half marathon I finished ahead of a pacing group. But for the most part, I get in a group. It's not really my pace. Whether or not, some groups, they run a steady pace. Some try to bank time. And, so it's not really ever worked out for me. I end up running the marathon for the most part alone. I get separated. Typically it'll spread out. And so I'm not drafting off anybody. But, this marathon, I decided I was going to go, and I was going to do a pacing group, and I was going to get in the 4-hour group. I thought if I had a great race, at mile 20, then maybe I would try to pull away from them. But I would try to hang on as long as I possibly could. I decided that I wasn't going to look at my watch and see what my heart rate was as long as I wasn't feeling miserable. I knew I was going to be breathing faster than I normally did for my training runs. I tried to put in my head that, when I'm doing the Ironman swim, I'm breathing every other stroke for, over an hour. So, it's okay to breathe a little harder than normal because you are in a race. I tried to look, we've watched a couple marathons over the fall. We watched the Chicago Marathon and the New York Marathon. And, those guys out in front, they're breathing hard. They're not gasping for air, but they are breathing hard and they're struggling. They're suffering. So it's like, okay, to race a race, you have to breathe a little harder. You're going to have to put yourself out. It's only 4 hours. So how bad could it be? It's not 13, 14 hours like an Ironman. So those were all the things that I was saying to myself. Was thought we'd go out and see, what kind of pace I had. So we started out, and I asked the pacing group. They said they were going to try to run pretty much a steady pace for the whole race. I thought that was great. The first part of the course is rolling hills. I knew that about mile 10 or 12 there was a pretty big hill, and that people tended to. If you look at pacing calculators, that was a place where people would slow down. But again, I decided to get in that pack and then just focus on that 4-hour balloon and the 4-hour banner that the pacing leaders were holding, and just go at it. And that's kind of what I did. So I breathed harder going up the hill, but then I settled out pretty quick, and it's like this pace really feels pretty good. I don't feel like it's too hard. I feel like I could go a little bit faster. But I'm not going to. I'm going to stay with this group. If I feel really great at 20 miles, then maybe I'll try to push ahead. But I can say that I felt that pace was actually a very comfortable pace for me, and I've never had that feeling before in a 4-hour pace group. So I thought that was really good, and that was really positive for me. I carry my own water. I carry a half a bottle, so I carried about 10 ounces of water with me. I had my gels. I used Cliff gels, Huma gels, and maple syrup packets. And so I was planning on taking one of those, trying to take in about 150 calories an hour, starting at about 4 or 5 miles. So I was going to, try to stick to that. And so after about just under 5 miles, I took my first gel and felt good. It sat well. I was taking in some water. I wasn't taking in the water that I thought I should take in. And frankly, I was breathing hard enough that it was a little bit hard for me to get the water and swallow and keep the pace and keep that, that feeling out. But I continued to do pretty well. I stopped to get my bottle refilled. I don't know what mile marker it was. I got a little behind, but I was able to catch up the pacing group. I gradually sped up and just kind of worked my way back to the group and stayed with the group. The third time that I needed to fill my water bottle was I guess I'll go back. I came into the halfway point at 13 miles feeling good. So I went up those hills between mile 10 and 12 and did good. So that was a real confidence booster that I got through the worst part of the marathon in my head, still feeling good. And at 13 miles, I still felt good, still felt fresh. I can tell you that there's times when I've done marathons where the half marathon peels off, and then you're kind of left with a really small group going on for the full marathon, and you feel lonely and tired and thinking, why am I doing this? It's a long, another 13 miles, but I didn't feel that way. The next goal was to get to 15. At the Sacramento Marathon, they have a little banner, the middle miles, 15 to 18. So I thought, okay, let's see how the 15 to 18 miles go. Because typically, that 17, 18 is when things start to hurt and I start to, get the slowdowns. So I said, let's just keep this pace up, focus on the pace group, and just keep at it. So things went along pretty good. 15 miles came and went, and still moving on. It was nice to see that the marathon was going fast. I didn't feel like I was out there forever. I'm in the second half of the marathon. I tried to, take the positive energy from the crowd. If somebody was yelling for somebody, I kind of imagined they were yelling for me. Listen to the music when I could. That's always a pick-me-up for anybody. They've done studies in the past where they show people smiley faces when they're on stationary bikes and they pedal faster, even if they can't really see the smiling faces, they just know the positivity of it. So I took all that in, kept my gels up. Around mile 18, 19, I had to get more water, and it was kind of at the base of a hill, and I stopped to get my water, slowed down enough to pour water in the water bottle. And I got away from the pace group got away from me. And so it was 50 yards away from me by the time I got through the crowd to get through the water at the water stop. And I was starting to feel tired. And it's like, oh, here it goes. Here the wheels are going to start to fall off. And so no, keep going. And I kept trying to, one of the guys had a red shirt on that was in the pacing group, and I kept trying to look at that red shirt and try to pull myself back, but it's like I knew that I was trying to push too hard to pull myself back into the pacing group. I just didn't have enough to go faster to catch them again. So okay, I'm going to just run my own race now. I'm going to stay within myself and see how this goes, get a gel in, and go from there. And I was kind of afraid to look down and see how much I'd slowed. I knew I was starting to slow a little bit, but I looked down and I wasn't slowing down that bad, not near as bad as I've ever slowed down before. And I thought, well, I'm not going to make the 4 hours. I just don't have that. Now the question is, can I break my personal best, which was 4 hours and 19 minutes? It's like, I think I can, because my pace hadn't slowed down that much. And if I just keep doing what I'm doing, I think I'll be able to do it. So that was kind of my focus. If I could get 4:15, I was going to be, that was going to be a win. And then the next race would be, to keep knocking time off of it. That's really where I was. So I actually started to, look down again, and I was picking up pace. At about mile 21, there's a hill that goes up to a bridge, and there's bands playing and all kinds of people and yelling. And I really used that positive energy for that hill. And Michael he hates that hill, and he's always saying once he can get past that, then, things aren't so bad. So I thought, well, okay, it's downhill, or at least it flattens out after this bridge. And I looked down, and I was picking up pace, and I was starting to get, more into 9:30 pace, where I had been up closer to 10. It's like, I think I'm going to be able to hang on and at least get this, break the 4:19 mark. So I'm running, and then gradually, my energy started to come back. I never walked. I never really took a walk break, even at the water stands. I kept moving and trying to pour water as I went. And so I just kept pushing. And it's like, okay, let's just push it a little harder. And I was breathing harder at that point. And I thought, okay, we're getting down to pretty close to a 10K. I think it's 8 miles to go at that point, and so, 10K, you can breathe hard for a 10K. It's not gonna be that bad. You can breathe hard for, 30, 40 minutes after that. So, let's just keep pushing. If you can get within the 5K range, you have it. And before long, I hit mile 23 and was still fighting through it and actually picking up pace a little bit. And got down to the street that goes along in front of the Capitol building, which is the last street before you make a left into the finish line. So I had about 20 blocks to go. And I actually came upon Michael, and he was not having a good day. He had some back spasms, but I kind of wanted to encourage him. And I really could use somebody. I was running by myself, and so I said, let's go, pace me in. And his exact words were, "Oh hell," because he didn't really feel like running hard, but he did. So he picked up his pace, and kind of drug me in, so to speak. So for the last 8 or 10 blocks, I just kind of focused on him up ahead of me. He was probably running 10, 12 yards ahead of me, and you turn in and we finished. And so I finished with a personal best of 4 hours and 4 minutes and 40 seconds. And that was enough to qualify for Boston, and broke my personal best previously of 4 hours and 19 minutes. So, the best part of that was, I'm getting older, but this was the fastest race that I've ever ran. And it was nice to qualify for Boston as well. And, I wanted the 4 hour, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but I know I learned a tremendous amount from this race. I think there was 3.5 miles where I kind of slowed. So, that 4 minutes and 40 seconds is probably there with a little bit more effort. I think that 4 hour mark is certainly doable. So that's encouraging. We've only been working together for 6 weeks, as a ramp up for this marathon. So I think to have some more time, I can do better. I learned that you can breathe harder than you want to for a longer period of time, and it doesn't make anything worse. My legs did not feel worse running faster than they did before, slowing down and running slower. Post-race, I am no more sore than I was when I ran at a slower pace. I'm not injured. So those are all really, really good things. If anything, I probably felt better after the race. Of course, I think you feel better when you run better and general positive vibes of having accomplished something. Certainly helps to hide some of the discomfort. My nutrition was spot on. I needed more water. I was so thirsty when I finished. I mean, I have never craved water like that for a long time. Since a hot summer run in Florida anyway. But so I did need to take in more water. So that was something I need to focus on. But it was a great experience, and I think that look forward to getting back out, and I'm ready to get out and train. I'm in a taper again, so I've rested this week. I did a little bike ride today. I'm going to start running tomorrow, which will be a Saturday. So 6 days afterwards, I'll start easing back up, and then we'll gradually get going again. But it was a great race. Next one up for me is a half marathon in Houston with Addie and Michael, and then we're doing a full marathon in Austin in February. So, takeaways is, again, this marathon running is a lot like life. Most of it's between our ears. And we put limits on ourselves that we don't necessarily need to put limits on. I never want to be cocky about, I can do this or that. I've been raised, to be humble. But I also been raised to, you can do anything you set your mind to. And I'm not ready to give up the fight at 57 that I'm going to, just slow down and whatever. I'm going to keep fighting the fight until there's nobody left in my age group, perhaps. I don't know. So anyway, that is a long, drawn-out race report and discussion of nutrition afterwards. We had bagel, and the post-race, they had fruit. They had all kinds. We do a VIP package. Unfortunately, they had fried potatoes. Didn't have those. They had sausage and pancakes and eggs, and didn't have those. But had fruit and some cereal. So they had some kashi cereal, and they came back to the hotel and had some more cereal and fruit, and like I said, a bagel, and then went and got Himalayan food. So that's how we fixed our recovered, and went back to eating my regular way, my big fruit in the morning and oatmeal, and my greens, and we did get a juice, green juice and a beet juice before the race. We had beets the night before the race as part of the dinner. They had sweet potatoes and beets and greens, as well as some pasta and marinara sauce. But I did much more in the way of greens and beets and sweet potato. I think that's a better pre-race fuel. I like my race nutrition, so yep, it's all good. So I hope you all are doing well. I hope this encourages somebody to get out between their ears and go do something. Thank you for listening. Again, if you'd like to email me with any questions or comments, Jami@drdulaney.com is DOCTORDULANEY. Go to our webpage, sign up for the newsletter, put one out a month, sign up for the immersion week, sign up for the conference, order a cookbook. And thank you very much for listening. And one other request, if you have a cookbook and you like it, I'd love a 5-star review on Amazon. If you love listening to this podcast and you could take time to go over to iTunes and give us a 5-star review, I'd love to get that, because I love to get the word out more that I'm putting this on, for the most part every week, and it's free, and keep spreading the word of, yes, I'm plant-based cardiologist that's walking the walk and doing eating this way, seeing people, helping people in the office as well as in nutrition class, and encouraging people to move their bodies. So have a great week. Again, thank you very much for listening.